13,602 community members volunteering in our schools for our students, who have logged almost 8,000 hours. Now, if you think about it, we didn't have volunteers in our schools at the beginning, so they really pressed on when it became crunch time towards the end. If you are in the audience and you volunteer in our schools and on our campuses, would you please stand?
Thank you.
The students that you saw here tonight are just a sample of some of the sample of the students at FISD, and that's who you're pouring your time into, so we appreciate you very much. Tonight's partner in ed that I would like to recognize is Preston Trail and their Fix-It team. In honor of Volunteer Appreciation Month, we'd like to recognize a group of dedicated community volunteers from Preston Trail Community Church. The Fix-It team completed a variety of repairs and enhancements at Bright Academy, Early Childhood School, and Rogers Elementary School that included but are not limited to assembling small trampolines and picnic tables, repainting the concrete playground, installing an outdoor learning stage, and building garden planters and a 30-foot sensory path for students with learning differences in one of our campuses. This Fix-It team deploys across the district I don't do that right, Melissa, that was right. They deployed with their team, even their children, to go onto our campuses to spruce them up and lend a hand for our staff. So at this time, I'd like to call Sharon Lightup, our Community Outreach Liaison, Dr. Waldrop, and President Archambault. And with the Fix-It team from Preston Trail Community Church, Ryan Anderson, and I'm not making this one up, Houdini, and their community pastor for Preston Trail, Jim Weston. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, no, we just want to say thank you.
Well, we're just grateful that we get to partner with our schools here. That's a big part of what we believe bless our community and help our community. And so thank you, Dr. Waldrop, for letting us on board, and Sharon and Allison to be able to partner with you all. And as a pastor, I would be remiss to remind you this is Easter this weekend, and we have 6 services on Saturday and Sunday. So we'll have a great week.
Yeah, so a lot of them that you saw in those pictures is in a group of Dee, myself, and we're just a group of guys that meet every Tuesday night. And at the beginning of 2021, we were meeting, we said, hey, we don't want to be a group that just meets every Tuesday. We want to be a group that goes out and serves the community. So we made a commitment to go in the community once a month and serve. That's at Frisco ISD, McKinney ISD, and a lot of other nonprofits we've served at. And I chuckle when I see some of those pictures that were up there, because we're not roofers, we're not sensory path, experts, but you know what? Like, the Lord provided, and we were able to do it. And if I'm completely honest, we were hesitant to come here because we didn't want to take any recognition or glory, because really all the glory goes to God. And the last thing I'll say is, we just want everyone at this staff, everyone in this council to know that you have a group of men in Preston Trail at church that wants to serve you and be there for you guys. So thank you.
Thank you all very much for being here. We appreciate your partnership. Thank you. We'll move on to item 5, invocation. Mr. Reed.
Please join me in prayer. Gracious God, we thank you for this day and the many blessings in our lives. We are surrounded by your greatness each and every day. We pray that you guide the decisions of this board and district leadership. We are grateful to our amazing teachers who prepare each student for his or her unique future. We pray for those that keep our classroom safe for students to learn and grow. It is in your name we pray.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 6, board report. Board, anything you'd like to mention?
Well, first of all, I want to say congratulations to all of the kiddos that were here tonight. That just is a testament to how awesome this district is. But I also want to say congratulations to Wakeland boys and girls who are both headed to the state soccer championship. That's awesome.
We also were fortunate to attend our Teacher of the Year celebration, and we want to thank all of our teachers for being incredible members of this Frisco IC community, and you're the reason that we get up every day, serve our students well, and we are very appreciative and want to just congratulate all of our finalists at each campus, as well as our 2 district Teachers of the Year. So congratulations.
Just one more thing, as Ms. Miller announced that it is Volunteer Month, and I wanted to say thank you to PTA Council for giving us the t-shirts, which I left back there. These are really cute t-shirts, but anyway, tomorrow is the PTA President's Luncheon, and as she stated, there are 13,302 volunteers that volunteer within FISD, but that does not even touch how many PTA volunteers we have. So I want to thank you for anyone who is here that volunteers with PTA in our schools every day, and all the ones that may be listening and that are on campuses every single day. So thank you.
I'm going to put you all on the spot, and if we have any PTA volunteers in the audience, would you please stand? Yep. Thank you all very much. Thank you so much.
May I add one more thing?
I guess.
We had the opportunity today to visit Frisco Family Services, and they're an awesome outreach program for everybody in our community who needs a little bit of help, but they need volunteers. So if you do have an opportunity and you have time to spare and help out that program, they need it. So just a little plug for them.
Awesome, thank you. We'll move on to item 7, review status of required trustee training. Everyone has completed their training. And that is a very short sentence for a whole lot of hours of work that go into the continuing education training that we all take incredibly seriously as a board of 7. We are the only, I don't know if this is something that's just common knowledge, but we are the only elected officials in the state of Texas that have required continuing education training. And we are appreciative of the opportunity to be able to train with trustees across this great state. And so I want to thank each and every one of you for not only the service that you have given to this community with your board service, but also the continuing education that you put into becoming better at your role and continue to advocate for this community. So thank you, board, for giving your all this year and every year. We'll move on to item 8, discussion regarding college career and military readiness report. Dr. Cunningham.
Yes, good evening. Thank you. We do an annual update on our House Bill plan for CCMR, military readiness, and early childhood literacy and math. This is an annual update. We're going to provide you some information about where we are and where we're going. I'm going to invite Dr. Chris Clark, our Managing Director of Academic Programs, to the podium to give you all the great stuff.
All right. Well, good evening, board members, Dr. Waltrip and IST. I do want to take a few minutes of your time tonight and give you our annual update on CCMR and early childhood literacy and math. Portions of House Bill 3. Just a little background, just to refresh your memory, or if you're not aware, to fill you in. House Bill 3 is a well-known school finance bill that was passed in 2019 by the Texas legislature. It included several requirements and initiatives for school districts across the state, but tonight we're going to talk about CCMR and early childhood literacy and math. The state's requirement for ECLM and CCMR were developed as action items from the School Finance Commission's 60 by 30 Texas goal, which was to have 60% of the state students reach proficiency by the year 2030. The School Finance Commission recommended these two checkpoints, CCMR and ECLM, as part of the pre-K-12 system. They do, for STAR purposes, for the early childhood literacy and math, use the meets grade level standard. Just to clarify that as you look at the data that was provided to you or that's in the presentation. Meets standard is a higher standard than approaches grade level, which is what we normally refer to when we're talking about students passing STAR. So that's just something to consider. Some other things about House Bill 3. So it did require us to establish, every district to establish 5-year goals for CCMR and early childhood literacy and math, and gain board approval, which was done in Frisco in January of 21, and then update the board annually on progress, which is what we're doing tonight. So the state does require that we include annual targets that are written for each campus, for the district, and that they are broken out by subpopulations of any population that's 25 or more students. So all of that data and those targets is included in the information provided to you. These goals do overlap with the campus improvement plans and that process that campuses go through. So you'll see some professional development plans included in some of the CCMR early childhood plans that you were provided, but some of the campuses just use their campus improvement planning process to address that. So either of those is fine, they overlap. So just to focus on the CCMR aspect of House Bill 3 for a couple of minutes. CCMR data, college career military readiness, I call it CCMR all the time. A lot of people don't always remember the meaning of that, but it's included in every high school and district's accountability report and rating, which can play out in a couple of different ways, but it does account for approximately 40% of a high school's accountability rating. The TEA glossary for accountability it's a great resource. If you want to go in more detail, you can read a little bit more about how that data is incorporated. There's a few different scenarios, but overall 40% is a good estimate. All right. So one important aspect is to consider how does a student reach CCMR criteria by the time they leave our high schools or complete 12th grade or hopefully graduate. So you can see on the slide, there are 5 ways under college readiness for students to achieve CCMR, and then there are 5 ways under the military and career readiness part of CCMR. So TSI, or Texas Success Initiative, there's a few ways within that students can achieve CCMR by SAT scores, achievement on the TSIA or ACT, or successful completion of a specialized college prep course, which we offer in reading and math here in Frisco ISD. Most of our students that achieve CCMR through TSI do it through the SAT assessment. Another way is through dual credit hours, so they can get 3 passing credit hours of English or math, or 9 hours of any other content. So that can include our CTE dual credit courses and things like that. Students can also earn a 3 or more on an AP or 4 on an IB exam, earn an associate's degree, which we do have a small number of students that do that. And then on-ramps is a course that we don't offer. It's a different version of the dual credit course, so we do not do that here in Frisco. So for career and military readiness, let me talk about military readiness first. So that is temporarily on hold by TEA because of not because of any wrongdoing or anything, but because tracking it, reporting it is quite difficult to do. So they haven't found a way to do that just yet. So that is still a criteria, but nobody's tracking that data just yet. Students can earn an industry-based certification or a level 1 or level 2 certificate. So those are 2 options through programs. Level 1 and 2 certificates are more along the lines, they're typically associated with some type of college credit at the Collin College Technical campus. Industry-based cert is something they take as part of the class at our Cade Center. And then you can see those two options for students who are served with special education. Depending on their needs and abilities, there are a couple of options for them to reach CCMR criteria as well. And let's see, I think that was it. So one important point is when data is included in the accountability rating for a campus, there's a year lag on the CCMR data. So the data that for the 2021 accountability ratings for our high schools and district is actually based on performance CCMR for the 1920 graduates. Another thing I wanted to point out about that as well is that several departments in Frisco ISD have been working together where we will have a dashboard completed where we can monitor live data. So it doesn't do as much good to get data, several months after students have graduated and left our system. So we're going to track student performance as they progress through the high school grades. All right, so here you can see our goals. This is our district goals, and the top part looks very similar to the packet you were given for every campus. You can see our goal is to increase from 76% to 83% over 5 years. I added that data at the bottom from the Texas Academic Performance Report, just to kind of give you some context. So the goals were written based off of performance prior to COVID. And so you can see that we hit a little, COVID impacted the performance. But you can look at the region and the state performance and see that Frisco has kind of held a little more steady than the rest of the state in our region. All right, you also were given a copy of our district CCMR plan. So it outlines district initiatives or programs or things that we're doing from a departmental standpoint in Frisco ISD to improve CCMR. It doesn't include every campus's initiative, so it's a really broad. Here's an overview of some of the things that are included in that plan. We're trying to increase, we're working to increase the offerings of industry-based certifications and level 1 and 2 certificates. The state does provide 240-ish options, but they aren't all relevant based on the courses that we offer here at our Cade Center or for our community needs. So we're identifying those that will meet those needs. All of our high schools, or most of them, have some type of program or system to identify students who are not taking an AP course that would benefit from taking one, so we can increase the number of students participating in the advanced placement program. We're also offering more or additional AP courses that are a good starting point for students if this might be their first course to take. School Day SAT also catches a lot of students, and we provide SAT to every student who is in the 11th grade in Frisco ISD. And then last but not least, dual credit offerings are also increasing, offering more 0-hour options, partnering with UNT in addition to Collin to provide different opportunities for students. Okay, so we'll switch gears a little bit and talk about early childhood and literacy, the early childhood literacy and math. This is kind of the precursor to CCMR, with the thinking that if we can get students to achieve, be proficient in 3rd grade, that they're more likely to achieve that CCMR status when they graduate. So similar to the CCMR data, I included the district's goal and the targets, but then also the data from our taper report for the state and the region in comparison to Frisco ISD. You do see a similar decrease in performance, so to speak, but we still outperform the state quite a bit. And this is just as a reminder, this is students who meet grade level, not approach. And then the literacy goal is very similar in terms of data. And then here's some highlights of the district strategies that were put in literacy, and math performance. Reading academies, those were a huge commitment from our teachers, all K through 3 teachers have are pretty close to completing, I believe most of them have at this point, if I'm correct, Dr. Cunningham. Our plans are being made to complete additional grades. Some additional assessments were added to the early childhood and kindergarten grades to do additional progress monitoring and inform intervention as necessary for students. And probably the most exciting piece is the expansion of our pre-K program. So from 1920, we went from 34 half-day classes with 17 teachers, 573 students, to 22-23, we will have 53 full-day classes and teachers and approximately 1,050 students. And so these are just some of the exciting things that are going on in Frisco to address this and aren't all inclusive of everything that the campuses are doing as well. So, all right, that is it. Does anybody have any questions?
I just have a clarifying question.
Yes.
Just to make sure, we're looking at meets grade level versus approaching grade level, and typically whenever we look at the taper and we look at passing rates for the district and the state and the region, we look at approaches, which are much higher percentages than this one.
Yes.
So this paints a little bit of a different picture, showing that our kids are higher.
Yeah, so meets grade level is a higher standard than approaches, but approaches is considered passing, so we generally report out passing, Dr. Cunningham.
I was going to say that's one of the data points that Dr. and I shared last month, that if folks want to take a look at that report, that's on the website.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
All right.
We appreciate it. We'll move on to item 9, discussion regarding instructional material allotment report. Dr. Cunningham.
Thank you. As my folks come up to the podium, this is something that we do regularly when we adopt instructional materials through the state process. This is a precursor to us requesting any funds to purchase materials. We have a very well thought out process, and I've asked Ms. Melissa Ellis, our Assistant Director of Early Childhood Instruction, and Mr. James Ayers, he's got lots of titles. He's our coordinator of health, PE, and I'm just.
All right, Dr. Waldron, Board, thank you for having us tonight. Tonight, James and I both have our PE health hats on. Proclamation 2022 called for us to look at PE and health curriculum adoptions for our district and consider the offerings out there. This provides just a brief timeline that we follow. We form committees. We schedule and work with Region 10 to hear from all the vendors and the products and curriculum that they're providing. And we work with the committee and using rubrics to really evaluate and identify which curriculums will best meet the needs of our kiddos here in Frisco. And then once we narrow down to what we think are our best selections, then we work to get cost information, contract details worked out, and then we can present that to you. After tonight, we will be posting our 2 recommendations for elementary and secondary so that we can get parent feedback for parents who would like to hop online and take a deeper look at those before we make any purchases. So, officially, our elementary recommendation for a new health and PE curriculum would be the Quaver Health and PE. And then for secondary, we're recommending the Goodhart-Wilcox Texas Health Skills for high school. Now, we do want to point out that for secondary, this high school curriculum actually covers both middle school and high school. So this is our elementary and secondary formal recommendations for our PE and health curriculum adoptions moving forward. That's it, short and sweet. We can talk about other things if you want. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you. You're welcome.
Move on to item 10, discussion regarding ongoing strategic planning. Mrs. Smith.
talking to you about something that's not the budget, so this is really fun. We've been talking for several years now about our strategic change process that we've been adopting. We spent some time at your budget workshop talking about kind of the next phase of it and how we start working to align all of the things that we've been working on with our budget and our financing plan and our just organizational strategy overall. And so this felt like a really good time to give you guys an update in a public meeting so that everybody can kind of hear what we're working on and what we have going and what our plans are over the next couple of years as we continue to build this out. We have named this, after much thought, Dynamic Organizational Strategy, because it is not a static strategic plan. We grow really fast, we innovate a lot, and a strategic plan that you put down on paper and try to make it last 5 years doesn't really work in Frisco ISD when we need to continue to grow and innovate and change the way that we do things. So this is not a strategic plan, it's a strategic change process. It is the continuous evaluation and alignment of our resources and our initiatives with our purpose. And I put this quote in the middle of the page. This is not something that's unique to school district environment. So there's this concept of a learning organization, which doesn't mean that you're a school district. It means that you're an organization that creates, acquires, and transfers knowledge and modifies your behavior to reflect new knowledge and insights. And that quote is out of an article in the Harvard Business Review that talks about how to be a learning organization and how to go through strategic change. So this is not unique to us. It's important to us to make sure that we ensure that our long-term goals and our innovations and our improvement efforts are aligned with everyone's expectations. The community's expectations, our staff's expectations, the board's expectations, etc. And formalizing this strategic change process allows us to do that. It allows us to engage and receive feedback from a variety of stakeholders throughout the entire change process. And it allows us to formalize the evaluation of our capacity to move forward with new initiatives. And when I talk about capacity, I'm talking about all the resources that it takes to put something into place. Time, energy, money, all of those things. So that's why this is important. Like I said, we've been talking about this for the past several years. We've had some challenges lately, over the past few years, that we've really been working to innovate and address. And I thought it would be good to just kind of go back and remind everybody what those challenges have been and what the work we've done over the past few years to address those challenges before I talk about what we're doing moving forward. Staff capacity is number one, right? We are acutely aware that every person has a capacity limit, and that limit might look a little bit different in a post-COVID world. So our staff capacity is the number one thing that we're concerned about. Just the ability to address student needs, both ongoing and COVID-related. Staff's personal financial needs, both ongoing and COVID-related. And then just the time, energy, and effort that it takes to implement any new initiatives or changes that happen. As a district, from a district lens, the ability to provide the resources to address all of those staff needs that are listed there is first and foremost when it comes to organizational planning, budget planning, all of those things, right? So we have to take those needs and address them on a broad scale. So that's a challenge in a district our size when we're talking about over 8,000 employees and 72 campuses, 73 campuses. I always lose count. Not to mention, we're planning to open 4 more campuses in the next 2 years. And that is something that we haven't really been dealing with the past few years. We were opening lots of campuses every year, and then we slowed down a little bit, and we're about to pick back up. And those kinds of considerations have to work themselves back into our operational plan. And then the ability to address inflation, which this year has been higher than it's been in a very long time. Which leads me into the legislative impact that we have. So I'll start at the bottom, the funding formula challenges. HB 3 was a landmark bill when it came to school finance, but there are still some shortcomings in it and this funding formula fails to take into consideration the rising cost of anything. And when we're talking about staff needs and the need to maintain a compensation that allows them to continue to live and have cost of living adjustments, those types of things aren't considered in the funding formula. So that is a challenge that we have been facing, that we are currently facing. Jumping back up to the first bullet, we've got mandates that come out of the legislature, and whenever I talk about school finance, even though this isn't a finance presentation, we always talk about how things change every 2 years, and it's difficult to plan long-term, because we are at the mercy of the legislature. So mandates like HB 4545, reading academies, those kinds of things, they impact the capacity both from a staff perspective and a district perspective to do the things that we want to do from a strategic standpoint. We also have a big one that we've talked about a little bit, but probably not a ton publicly, is health insurance. So that speaks directly to the financial needs of our staff, right? Because health insurance is a rising cost. It's something that we need to address from a district standpoint, and it's a piece of our compensation plan that we look at annually. But you know, the legislature, when they met last, basically took away our ability to continue to offer competing health plans to TRX Active Care, which means that amongst all the other challenges and all of the other capacity needs that we have, we're now having to look at moving all of our employees back into TRX Active Care next year. So those are some of the things that we have to consider when we're trying to move forward and innovate and do things. We've got these other things that we have to consider. So some of the things that we've done over the past few years, in terms of student needs, both from a COVID standpoint and a non-COVID standpoint, we've really been focusing heavily on things like restorative practices, inquiry-based learning, standards-based grading. We are working on opening up FISD Plus next year, so we've been doing a lot of innovative things to serve our students. We've also done a lot of innovative things to help serve our staff, right? We've given out 2 CARES incentives. We have done retention incentives. We looked at giving staff back some of their time by giving them an additional day off this year. From a professional development standpoint, our professional development department has been really looking at the professional development plan for next year to make sure that we are addressing staff capacity and being really thoughtful in the types of professional development we're providing. We've been working on our plan to implement teacher incentive allotment. We have been working through the creation of an employee health plan to address some of the healthcare issues. We've been working on developing a staff wellness program. So all of these things are looking at ways to serve our staff, create some capacity for them in any type of area. And all of that we're doing on a fixed income as a school district, which, even though this is not about the budget, is one of the reasons that this strategic change process is so important. Because we have to look at continuing to evaluate what we're doing, how we're doing it, the types of resources that we're putting into it, so that we can move forward on a fixed income. So all that being said, some of the current work that we're doing through this strategic change process, the first thing we're doing is documenting all of our existing initiatives, and those are the things that I put on the previous slide. Working on formalizing the communication of the alignment of all of our systems with those priorities. Defining the outcomes that we expect from each of those initiatives. Being able to calculate the return on investment that we're getting from each of those initiatives. Clearly outlining ongoing implementation efforts and the necessary resources to keep those going, okay? And I'm not saying that we haven't already done that, it just has been in a less formal process. So that's some of the things that we're working on. We're also beginning a strategic abandonment initiative, which is essentially just taking stock of all of the things that we're doing, evaluating, benchmarking, and doing some efficiency studies. We're working on streamlining processes and required resources that are used by campus staff so that we can identify efficiencies where possible, create some capacity in both our staff and at the district level, to move forward, and reinvest those resources in either existing or new initiatives. So it's important to us to kind of hit the pause button a little bit, make sure we take stock of where we are, and make sure that we create as much capacity for our people as we possibly can. We're doing that by using this, what we call the hierarchy of purpose. This is a method to align all of the things that we're doing, all of our initiatives with our priorities and our mission to know every student by need. And you guys have seen this a couple of times, so I won't go back through it, but it essentially ensures that all of our initiatives and all of the resources that it takes to put those initiatives in place are directly aligned with our future ready framework, with our mission to know every student by need, and that we have evidence of success for each of those. We have a return on investment that we can clearly communicate with our stakeholders. So over the course of the next 2 years, we expect to have this more formalized in the form of hopefully an annual report that will be available both electronically and paper. That would take the place of a handful of things. Our community-based accountability system report, our annual budget, what I'm calling the strategic roadmap, because it's not a strategic plan in the normal sense. It would be a 1 year, this is what we're doing and working on, and the changes that we're undergoing and how we're evaluating those things, right? And also potentially our district improvement plan. So lots of information wrapped into one nice, aligned package. Formalizing this process also allows us to have regular ongoing communication with stakeholders at all levels. So lots of voice, lots of stakeholder voice in the whole process. That's all I have. Do you guys have any questions, comments?
Any questions?
No question, just appreciate this presentation in conjunction with the workshop that we had recently. I'm really excited about the progress that we've made. We all started on the journey pre-COVID, and so that slowed it down a little bit, but I think we've got momentum going again, and looking forward to see what comes out of this in the next couple of years.